From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 considers 3 of numerous claims of local cure for further evaluation, halts evacuation of Nigerians abroad. Federal government considers morning and evening classes as options for reopening schools in the COVID pandemic era. Plight of the Nigerian child, especially during COVID-19 pandemic, is on the spotlight tonight as they're denied opportunity to celebrate the annual Children's Day. And European Union Commission proposes €750 billion COVID-19 recovery fund for member countries. Plus, business, news from Abuja, the FCT, and later from our studios in London.
On business news, Central Bank reduces interest rates on its facilities through other financial institutions to 5% per annum for 1 year.
And on sports news tonight, Nigeria Football Federation extends Gernot Rohr's contract as coach of the Super Eagles.
And from Abuja, House of Representatives begin full investigation into reports of abuse and maltreatment of Nigerians in China. Indicates readiness to engage Chinese parliament on the matter.
Nigeria is perhaps another inch closer to finding a local cure for coronavirus, as the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says 3 out of the numerous claims have been found deserving for further investigations. At the daily briefing of the task force in Abuja, the chairman says the 3 claims have now been forwarded to the relevant agencies. The Minister of Health is also concerned about the increasing number of confirmed cases, which have overwhelming effects on the already stretched healthcare system.
By the chairman of the Presidential Task Force, SGF, sir.
It is the first briefing by members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 after the Salah holiday. The chairman of the task force leads the briefing for the day. He gives progress report on indigenous efforts to find a cure for COVID-19.
As a measure of the importance attached to research and development of local capacity for finding a cure for COVID-19, the Federal Minister of Health held a virtual meeting with a number of researchers and scientists with claims to cure of COVID-19. And out of the numerous claimants, 3 were found to deserve further investigation and have been forwarded to the relevant authorities for appropriate review.
However, the increasing number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 is a major source of worry for the Presidential Task Force.
We are concerned about the increasing number of confirmed cases. This is because very high cases could seriously exceed the capacity of our health system to cope.
Fielding questions at the news conference, members of the PTF speak about the strain of the virus in Nigeria, update on the evacuees who have completed their quarantine period, as well as the Benue Index case that was discharged from the hospital last week.
I can confirm to you that from the Nigeria Institute of Medical Research, they have been able to establish that the strain we have here is the same as the strain in Wuhan.
To the best of my knowledge, only the 3 cases that were reported in respect of the UAE in Lagos were the only positive tests that we had. So all the others were negative. The batch from the United States and the batch from the, I think it was the United Kingdom, we've also been able to return their test results, and they've all been able to now leave quarantine. And those that needed to go to Lagos, arrangements were made, and they were able to fly to Lagos.
If it was now, the patient would not have stayed 45 days. That's the impact of the science coming out now, that the virus is not viable after 10 to 14 days.
There are currently over 8,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria. Over 2,380 have been discharged, just as 249 deaths have been recorded.
Staying with the daily PTF briefing, evacuation of Nigerians from countries around the world is on hold for now, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs says it's developing a new guideline for citizens seeking to be evacuated. This is according to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyema, who explains that part of the new policy guidelines require that intending evacuees must do a compulsory test for COVID-19 at least 5 days to their departure. The minister also affirmed that 69 Nigerian girls trafficked to Lebanon have been rescued and evacuated back to the country.
Anybody that is going to be evacuated will first of all have to undergo a test from the country that they're leaving from at least 5 days before travel and not later than 9 days before travel. That will be a precondition for boarding the flight to come to Nigeria. So a pre-flight test. And if they're positive, of course, they will not be able to get on the flight. If they are negative, they can get on the flight. But arriving in Nigeria, the passengers, and this is the big difference now, will then be able to go home and not into a prescribed hotel to self-isolate. So, what we've been asked to do essentially is to suspend all evacuations for now until this new structure is put into place.
Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Education, Mr. Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, says plans are underway to reopen schools in Nigeria, but this may not happen next month, as speculated by some. The Education Minister insists that sanitation facilities in government schools have to be improved first and modalities for physical distancing put in place. He also notes that junior and secondary school students preparing for the examinations may be considered to resume first.
For a country that has over 115,000 primary schools, you will understand that 35,000 of these who are private must agree to set up the same standards in order to allow children go in. Number one, we want all our children, be they at secondary, primary, tertiary institutions, to come into schools by the time they would have done physical distancing. It is the same we're planning for secondary school reopening. We want to bring in our JS children and SSS first. They conclude their exams, vacate the place, use as much of the space as possible, and then others can return. We'll do the same thing with primary schools, where we will now limit the number of children per class. What this may mean also is that we may have classes in the mornings and then have classes in the afternoon.
We'll be talking to the Education Minister in a bit on the bulletin. But here in Lagos, it's cheering news as the state government has discharged 87 patients from its isolation facilities after they tested negative to COVID-19. This is confirmed on the State Ministry of Health's verified Twitter handle, which says the patients are all Nigerian 40 females and 47 males. Meanwhile, based on observation of the pattern of the COVID-19 around the world, it takes 4 to 6 months for an outbreak to peak. The State Commissioner for Health, who explained this at a ministerial briefing to mark the governor's first year in office, also said the state has been training and employing more healthcare professionals for the disease response.
LASUTH has expanded its resources. It has increased its complement of staff, recently employed 105 new house officers, 33 additional consultants, and 157 resident doctors. We've increased our healthcare professionals by 1,050 across the public, primary, and secondary and tertiary facilities. We've trained over 1,500 diversity of medical cadres that are responsible for the COVID-19 response. We now have at our disposal over 1,500 personnel that can be deployed to the isolation facilities and to the primary healthcare platform that we're about to include into the COVID-19 response. We also have trained 50 intensivists who are positioned now to take care of the complications of COVID-19. In the last 6 months, we've added 1,044 new recruits across the different cadres of healthcare professionals in the primary healthcare structure. We've increased our testing capacity dramatically. We're now able to test up to 2,000 tests per day, and that number will increase as we encourage qualified and accredited private sector laboratories to participate in the COVID-19 response.
Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, today is Children's Day, a day set aside to celebrate Nigerian children and highlight issues surrounding their upbringing, as well as promoting their rights. The day was established in 1954 as Universal Children's Day, and since then celebrated on different dates in different countries, including Nigeria, where it is marked on May 27th every year and observed as a public holiday for children. Children's Day is usually marked with the various activities in Nigeria, including colorful parades in schools, just as government and non-governmental bodies and individuals advocate and demand action for respect of child rights. All that appears not possible this year in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has disrupted activities across the world, leaving entire populations, including children, restricted to their homes as part of measures to contain spread of the disease. It was a solemn in the nation's capital, which usually would have been marked by march pasts and other activities for school children. Empty chairs, no marches or speeches to commemorate Children's Day, as has been done for years at the Eagle Square in Abuja. In this next report, we look at the mood of children and teachers in Abuja as the COVID-19 pandemic marred the Children's Day celebration in the nation's capital.
Empty chairs at the Eagle Square on Children's Day. The flagpoles are empty. No speeches, no bands, no marches, no schools, no teachers, nothing. COVID-19 deals Children's Day in Nigeria a hard blow. Since the 31st of March this year, schools have been closed across the country. At the time, no one thought the schools would be closed for this long. Emeka is a performing arts teacher. His school closed before the 31st of March, when parents raised concerns about the pandemic. Although studies have continued online, departments such as his are badly hit.
It's easy to engage kids online and tell them to do mathematics, teach them something about English, or try to develop them. But my kind of work, I need to work with them practically. I need to see them. This year, as you can see, it's pretty much like a dead zone. This is very quiet. Today's Children's Day, and it's sad we can't have kids come out and celebrate because everybody's scared for their lives, everybody's concerned for their safety and all of that.
Children's Day is usually a big deal in this school, with parties and parades. Not this year. Some students speak on how they are coping with staying at home and what they miss about Children's Day.
I miss going out with my friends, having fun with everyone. Yeah, like we usually go out and all. We have fun, go to places that we've never been to and all, and have fun with other people.
I miss going out with people, having fun around with my friends, eating together, getting to learn new stuff outside, and also making new friends.
As with most sectors, COVID-19 has added more burden to an already fraught educational system in Nigeria. Children's Day usually affords Nigeria an opportunity to look inwards and fix problems in the educational system. These kids are the lucky ones. They can continue their classes online. What happens to children in rural areas who do not have internet and must wait for the pandemic to end before they continue their education? Will Nigeria be dealing with more out-of-school children after this pandemic?
In part two, after the break, we'll continue our focus on the plight of the Nigerian child, particularly concerning their education. We'll be joined on the News at 10 by the Minister of State for Education, Mr. Emeka Umajuba. Plus, some children live under difficult circumstances and they obviously need more help now more than before. Stay with us. Welcome back. If it has joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 considers 3 of numerous claims of local cure for further evaluation, halts evacuation of Nigerians abroad. Federal government considers morning and evening classes as options for reopening schools in the COVID-19 pandemic era. Plight of the Nigerian child, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic era, is on the spotlight tonight as they are denied opportunity to celebrate the annual Children's Day. And European Union Commission proposes 750 billion euros for COVID-19 recovery fund for member countries. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. As the world marks Children's Day today, the plight of the less privileged ones comes to focus with suggestions from parents and what must be done to improve their well-being in society. In this report, our correspondent, Gimba Umar, takes a look at the challenges of some children from critical perspectives.
Considered vulnerable, some are forced to fend for themselves as children. Coming to terms with the reality of changing times, Rebecca Afamefuna, a mother of 3, sells snacks to fend for her kids. She narrates the daily challenges of childcare.
I don't tell them what Children's Day mean. So if I told them, they would like me to take them outing.
The last of her kids barely understands the essence of Children's Day.
Do you know what Children's Day is?
The concerns, however, resonates, as this 72-year-old grandfather, a taxi driver, tells me.
You don't just celebrate on the tip of the tongue for mere celebration's sake, which has no impact on the future of the children.
More children loiter in the streets. Some stay in their compound. At only 6 years old, she does the house chores. Some are seen hawking all sorts, including watermelon. Others helping to pack drinks for a price. Internally displaced children in the northeast bear perhaps the biggest brunt. So do millions of Almajiri kids who beg for alms, many out of school, their future uncertain.
One of the things I've noticed about the less privileged children is their inability to access quality education. And if this is not being addressed, it could create societal problem.
A cluster in Lagos speaks volumes. Gloomy faces, tattered looks have become their lot. Good Samaritans troop here to help.
They are children, so they basically do not know their right from their wrong for now. So with guidance and love and care, they should be able to move forward.
Children are believed to be leaders of tomorrow. Perhaps what is needed now is to adequately equip them so they don't start off in poverty. Gimba Umar, Channels Television News.
Let's head on now to Abuja, where Ibrahim Adra is standing by with more on the news at 10. Hi, Ibrahim.
Hello, Marachi. Well, still on the Children's Day, as you know, the celebration have been disrupted across the country. Some young techies have given a day a new twist by coming up with initiatives in tune with the coronavirus. Our tech correspondent, Victor Matthias, has more for us.
It's the 27th of May, in arguably the most unusual time of the 21st century, a day set aside in Nigeria to celebrate the Nigerian child. And behind me is the Agege Stadium in Lagos State, where children would have been marching, smiling, just to celebrate this special day.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric.
COVID-19 may have had its impact on the Children's Day celebration. We visit some homes to see how they spend the day. 10-year-old Joshua Agbola is not deterred by the situation. He spends his time building apps that suit the times.
I have produced a few games. I produced games like Josh Copter, Sonwolu COVID Dodge, Buhari COVID Dodge. And those apps are going to be on the Play Store in a week or two. I've opened their courses for free on EDX this quarantine period. So I took one of the courses called CS50 Game Development.
At the Right Hands Innovation Center, some young developers have also taken the initiative to build a robotic technological solution they believe will be useful this period.
We developed a solution to minimize the human contact with coronavirus. So we simulated a supermarket and we coded a robot to help with the family needs to go to the supermarket to get groceries for the family in order to minimize the human contact with.
They also have messages for their peers.
Happy Children's Day. Stay safe. Use this free time that you have to do something productive.
Obey all the necessary rules to avoid coronavirus.
According to UNICEF, more than 1.5 billion children have had their education disrupted due to the widespread of school closures, but that has definitely not stopped some of them from doing great things. Victor Matthias, Channels Television News.
Victor, really impressive and inspiring as well. Well, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has also extended his goodwill to Nigerian children as they mark the Children's Day today. Vice President Osinbajo declares in a tweet, "This Children's Day, we celebrate limitless possibilities. Let us give them a chance to do better than ourselves." He goes ahead to wish the kids a happy Children's Day celebration, COVID-19 notwithstanding. And the wish to see an end to COVID-19 tops the list for many children in Nigeria as they join in a celebration that is far from what they are used to. The children say the outbreak has now been added to the yearnings to build for a better Nigeria.
With the parents off to work and schools closed as a measure to reduce the spread of COVID-19, Onyekachi, Uchechi and Amarachi say they are bored.
I wish that I can be able to eat some more things and maybe go back to school.
In estates, children seem to be more active as a few parents have allowed them to meet at the playground on the condition that they would always have their face masks on. But this is not satisfactory.
I went to the cinema and I celebrated with my family and friends. And now it's boring. I wish for this pandemic to end.
There are some changes which some of the children would like to see in the country.
I would like to change bad roads, and I want Nigeria to have more hospitals for patients.
In Kano State, children have noticed that measures that would allow them explore their potentials optimally are missing.
Is the orientation Nigerian parents have concerning female children involving themselves in sports. Palliatives were shared by the government to the poor people, and yet some people were still complaining that they couldn't get.
It's similar in the southeastern state of Anambra.
I wish for Nigeria to be a better country, to make a positive impact on anyone I meet and anywhere I go.
There are, however, some wishes which are common to most children, irrespective of their location.
Well, there'll be more reports on the Children's Day from our Lagos studios. But when the news at 10 return, BOA Group donates 3 ambulances to Jigawa State government to support the state in its fight against coronavirus pandemic. Plus, Central Bank reduces interest rates on its facilities through other financial institutions to 5% per annum for 1 year. That'll be on Business News. Do join us again.
Welcome back to the news at 10 for more on the plight of the Nigerian child, particularly this period of the pandemic. We're now being joined at the news at 10 by the Minister of State for Education, Mr. Emeka Nwajuba. He joins us from Abuja. Mr. Nwajuba, thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you very much.
And I would have said a happy Children's Day to you because some consider that even grown adults are still children. So a happy Children's Day to you, I should say. But now to the focus of the evening. The pandemic is a major concern for the Nigerian child. You saw the reports. Children unhappy. They're not able to do the normal things they would have done today. Apart from that, there are worries over the high rate of out-of-school children now more than ever, even with the Almajiris. What does the future hold then for the Nigerian child?
Thank you, Amarachi. And again, my warm regards to all our children, myself inclusive. All of us should be happy, having a happy Children's Day, but for coronavirus, it's not the making of anybody. And we sincerely all are in this together. Our brief to the children and to all our students and scholars around Nigeria is bear with us. Let us work this out together. Nigeria is confronted with a myriad of problems that we were in process of solving at the Ministry of Education. Like you pointed out, a lot of we have the highest number of out-of-school children, which for many years Nigeria has tried to address. The UBEC Act of 2004 was specifically designed to make education compulsory. In your report, you would have seen a lot of people at disadvantage by poverty, by lack of access, and a lot more. And over the years, a lot has been done to provide new infrastructure at various places in Nigeria. Nigeria has one of the largest number of school infrastructure, 65,000 public schools, 68,000 public schools, and an additional 35,000 primary schools in the hands of private individuals. So a lot of infrastructure is available. Nigeria has a nearly 2 million teacher population. That shows you we have also made those investments over time. People have gone to school, we've trained a lot of teachers, we've retrained and keep retraining them. So there's a lot, but there's still a lot more to be done because even with all of that, we still have about 10.5 million children out of school. And maybe all of them, some of them are classified in the Almajiri, those who are in the markets, those who don't have access. And we're doing all we can to bring all of them to school, primary school in Nigeria is free. It's actually not just about being able to afford it. We have schools everywhere. What we've been doing is driving people to please attend them. There are so many cultural and religious norms that have hindered people from fully accessing them. And this has impacted on how our children have been able to access them. If you look at the 36 states, there's a wide gap between school attendance in almost all of the states, especially in our very far north states where we have been encouraging governors to please do all they can. A lot of them are beginning to do the most they can. You've heard the 19 state governors meet together and say, look, they need to disburse their mandatory school system and get everybody to formal schools. That work is encouraged. We need to provide them with alternate school learning. That work needs to be encouraged. UNICEF, development partners, everybody is working flat out to ensure that we get everybody to schools. So right now, our problem is infrastructures to get everybody going to school and improve our teacher quality and school material quality. Before we were interrupted by this COVID problem, we were on the verge of counting how many were drawn into school because the National Education Council met in Port Harcourt in October last year and declared a resolve to eradicate the out-of-school children syndrome. And we're at the verge of achieving that before. What our biggest problem with the COVID thing is that the longer children stay at home, the less some of them may return, because then they will become useful in other respects, maybe as people who go to market with them, or farms, or, become...
Indeed, Minister. But earlier today, you did speak extensively on digitizing the education system to cope with the challenges of COVID-19. You talked about morning and evening classes. How realistic do you think this is, given that we do have our technological challenges?
This has been done before. I'm not inventing anything new. I mean, I remember from the 70s when you could go to afternoon class of the same class in the morning. Like I said, our issue with staggering some of the school times is about social distancing. Part of the protocols that will be required in reopening the schools, especially at the secondary, primary, and some part of the tertiary level, would be to get some sort of social distancing. That is very difficult with children and especially when they're in large numbers. So maybe we'll need to figure out the class sizes. We may need to reduce them, space the desks a bit more apart. And already, some of these classes are overcrowded as it is. Some of the lecture halls are overcrowded as they are. So really, if we wait to build new infrastructure, build this, but we may not. Therefore, we will use what we have and only space them out a little better. We could have senior classes of the same, or ask people what is convenient for them, because also some of the school times may be actually not convenient for a lot of people at the moment, and that may even be at the root of why some of them were out of school in the first place. So Zoom can come in the afternoon, better up, from 2 o'clock towards 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You still achieve the same number of 5-hour school times that we allocate from 8 to 1 or 7 to 1 or 8:30 to 1:30.
Mr. Nwajuba, thank you so much, the Minister of State for Education, Mr. Emeka Nwajuba, for speaking with us on the News at 10. Appreciate your making time to be with us this evening.
Thank you very much, America. Thank you, Nathan.
In other news now, lawmakers in the House of Representatives have commenced investigation into the maltreatment of Nigerians in China by the Chinese authorities. The probe is being carried out by the Joint Committees of Foreign Affairs, Interparliamentary, Diaspora and Human Rights. During a meeting to consider its interim report, the committee chairman advocated a veritable basis to engage the Chinese parliament and advise the executive on the next line of action. The president of the African Development Bank, Mr. Akinwumi Adesina, has reacted to recent reports calling for reinvestigation by the U.S. Treasury Department after his exoneration over partiality in the leadership of the institution. In a statement released today, Mr. Adesina reaffirmed his innocence with regard to the allegations which seek to challenge his integrity as well as the reputation of the bank. According to him, I am confident that ultimately, and as one collective body, the bank will emerge stronger than before and continue to support Africa's development drive. Mr. Adesina also says he will continue to work with each and every one of the bank's shareholders to ensure that the AFDB maintains its hard-earned global reputation and that its credible and functional institutions and governance systems are reinforced. The BUA Foundation has donated some ambulances to Jigawa and Sokoto states as part of efforts to help in curbing spread of the coronavirus across the country. While receiving the ambulances from the General Manager of BUA Rice, Abdullahi Aminu, the Governor of Jigawa State, Muhammad Abubakar, described the donation as timely, expressing gratitude for BUA's support in the time of need. Meanwhile, representatives of BUA Foundation have affirmed they will continue to support various mechanisms aimed at helping the country flatten the curve whilst curbing spread of the coronavirus. Recently, the group's subsidiary, BUA Cement, the largest private employer of labor in the Northwest, provided 100 million naira to the Sokoto State COVID-19 Response Fund. It has set aside about $20 million since the start of the pandemic in the country to support various efforts against COVID-19 through the provision of equipment, cash, grants, and infrastructure support. Business News is next. Here's Kayode Ukikiolu.
Well, thank you, Amarachi, and you're welcome to Business News. In a bid to further mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on households and businesses, the central bank has reduced interest rates on its facilities through participating financial institutions from 9% to 5% per annum for 1 year, with effect from March this year. CBN's Director of Financial Policy and Regulation, Mr. Kevin Amugo, who made this known in a circular, clarified that OFIs such as microfinance banks and primary mortgage institutions are granted leave to consider temporary restructuring of tenor and loan terms for households and businesses that have been affected by the pandemic. Mr. Amugo explained that the regulator will continue to monitor developments and implement appropriate measures to safeguard financial stability and support stakeholders impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, the CBN's Monetary Policy Committee will tomorrow hold its third rates decision meeting in the year. Well, let's head over to the NSE as Nigeria's stock market kicks off the last trading week of May on a positive note, gaining about 8.6 million naira as investors resume from the Muslim holiday with mild bargain hunting for blue chip equities. Bisi Adebayo now tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. The local bourse resumed trading today after the long holiday on a positive note, although marginally, as the main index rose 0.07%. The banking sector led gains with the index rising 5.36%, and that was due to increases by almost all listed lenders. Next in the trail of gains is the consumer goods sector, which added 3.09%. Now, the other three sectors which track closed the day negative, with industrial goods tumbling 1.98%, while insurance and oil and gas shared 0.56% and 0.34% each. Tier 1 lenders, FBN Holdings, Zenith and GT Bank were the highest on the list of top trades. And Wednesday's trading session saw over 500 million shares worth 5.59 billion naira exchanged in 7,759 transactions. And these are the top gainers and losers for the day. And that's it on the Stock Market Reports. I am Bisi Adebayo.
Thank you for watching Business News Tonight. I'm Kayode Ukikiolu. It's back to Amarachi on the news at 10.
Still ahead on the news at 10. European Union Commission proposes €750 billion COVID-19 recovery fund for member countries. We'll have this and more from our London studio and around the world in 5. Stay with us. Welcome back. The European Commission has proposed a €750 billion recovery fund for the bloc. The package will include grants and loans for all 27 EU member states as they bid to recover from the effects of coronavirus. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London for your international news around the world in 5. The European Union has unveiled a €1 trillion recovery plan to get the bloc back on its feet after the coronavirus crisis, as Latin America has outpaced Europe and the US in the number of daily infections.
The Commission is today proposing a new
The massive European proposal follows other unprecedented emergency measures introduced around the world to rescue economies devastated by COVID-19 that has claimed more than 350,000 lives so far. The virus has continued to spread in Latin America, with Brazil leading the pack after recording the highest daily death toll in the world for the 5th straight day, pushing its total to over 24,000 deaths. Police in Hong Kong have arrested around 300 people and fired rubber bullets amid new anti-mainland unrest. Protesters were rallying against a bill that would ban insults on China's national anthem and Beijing's planned introduction of a national security law. Demonstrators have opposed the anthem bill, which would criminalise insulting it, and the security law, which they fear will strip Hong Kong of basic freedoms. Twitter has for the first time prompted readers to check the facts in tweets sent by US President Donald Trump, warning his claims about mail-in ballots were false and had been debunked by fact-checkers. In a tweet responding to the company's move, Trump accused the company of interfering in the 2020 presidential election. He wrote, "Twitter is completely stifling free speech, and I, as president, will not allow it to happen." In a news conference, Trump also repeated his claims that mail-in ballots would lead to fraud. Meanwhile, there have been violent clashes between police and protesters in the US city of Minneapolis following the death of an unarmed black man in police custody. 4 Minneapolis police officers have been fired over the death of George Floyd, who was seen in a video lying face down in the street, gasping for air while a white officer knelt on his neck for several minutes. Hours after the officers' dismissals were announced, thousands of protesters filled the streets. New swarms of locusts have increased the insecurity for millions of people in East and Central Africa who are already struggling from the impact of COVID-19 and flooding. Locust invasions in recent months have destroyed thousands of hectares of crops in Kenya, Somalia and Ethiopia. The latest generation of swarms, feared to be around 400 times larger than the original swarms, are expected to hatch in June when crops are ready to harvest. Meanwhile, in Tanzania, the comedian Idris Sultan has appeared at a magistrate's court 8 days after he was detained. Sultan was arrested after a video of him laughing at an old photograph of President John Magufuli wearing an oversized suit went viral on social media. Police have accused him of violating the Cyber Crimes Act and bullying the president. Many social media users have reshared the video with the hashtag #FreeIdrisSultan and set his photo as their profile picture in a show of solidarity. The United Nations has said that its programs in Yemen are near a potential breaking point as COVID-19 has exacerbated difficulties. Around 80% of Yemen's population relies on humanitarian assistance, making it the world's biggest humanitarian crisis even before the coronavirus. The United Nations said that Yemen's healthcare system has in effect collapsed, with the virus thought to be spreading throughout the country, and appealed for urgent funding. A team of Chinese surveyors have scaled Mount Everest, becoming the only climbers to summit the world's highest peak during the coronavirus pandemic. Chinese media have reported that the team is there to re-measure the height of Everest, which is on the border between China and Nepal. Until now, China has put the height at 4 meters lower than Nepal does. The huge 2015 earthquake may also have had an impact. 2 New Zealand hikers have been found in a densely forested national park 19 days after they set off. Jessica O'Connor and Dion Reynolds, who are both 23 years old, hiked into Kahurangi National Park on the 9th of May and were expected to return 5 days later. But after getting lost in fog, they both injured themselves and got lost. They found water and were rescued when a search helicopter noticed smoke from their campfire. And finally, a Japanese company has developed an app that allows fans to cheer remotely for their favourite sports teams playing in empty stadiums. The remote cheerer system enables fans watching sports virtually to cheer or boo the players via their smartphones, sending either a pre-recorded shout-out or their own personal message. The voices they send will reverberate around the stadium in real time, transmitted by giant loudspeakers. And that's your international news around the world in 5. And now back to the channel studios in Lagos.
Welcome to Sports News. Pandemic has caused a lot of disruption and forced cancellations of major sporting events worldwide. Today, a new champion will have been crowned for season 12 of the Channels International Kids Cup, but that didn't happen due to the outbreak. In this report, our sports correspondent, Austin Okonakwan, relives some of the moments of past editions.
In 2017, the Channels Kids Cup became an international tournament with the introduction of teams from Benin Republic and Ghana.
Yes, number 10 for Delta State. The referee blesses his whistle. Darlington strikes it. It's a beautiful goal. It doesn't get better than this.
It was indeed a memorable event as former heavyweight boxing champion Evander Holyfield, former Super Eagles goalkeeper Peter Rufai, and the visionary Mr. John Momo joined the fun.
Final kick, he moves on and he pauses a bit, and it's true, and it's a goal! And you can see what it means to him.
It's a structured environment that allows the kids to apply what they know, and you'll find that even as a kid may have a lot of knowledge, if they don't apply, they're not going to be successful. It's about applying what you know.
Did you win? Oh, don't worry. Yeah.
In 2018, the excitement was pumped with the visit of former Super Eagles captain Joseph Yobo.
Is Baptist Elementary.
In the final match, the boys from Kayama, Kwara State wrapped up a fine campaign.
And that's it on Sports News. Amarachi, back to you.
Thanks, Olumide. And finally tonight, with the Children's Day celebration still in the air, President Muhammadu Buhari also celebrated Nigerian children, wishing them a happy Children's Day. We're looking at some of the pictures from the president's Twitter handle earlier today. And the main news again, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 today considered 3 of numerous claims of local cure for further evaluation. The PTF also halted evacuation of Nigerians abroad. That's it on the news at 10. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.